Hey, this is Curren, and this is the Daily Reflection Podcast.
Welcome to the Daily Reflection Podcast. My name is Michael Lynn from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
And I'm Lee McGinnis from Leesburg, Virginia.
As members of the recovery community, we created this podcast as a way to provide experience, strength, and hope through the lens of the Daily Reflection book. Each day, we interview members of the recovery community in the hope that their experience may provide inspiration.
We value inclusion and diversity, and we really want to provide a platform for all the voices of recovery. We aren't affiliated with any 12-step or recovery program, but you may hear these mentioned throughout the course of an interview.
Hey, before we get to the show, I'd like to ask a favor. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, it'd be great if you could leave us a comment or a rating. This is going to do a couple of things. It's going to help us expand our reach and improve the show.
We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Hey, quick shout out to Jeff Boehm of Frederick, Maryland. He's been helping out with editing and helping us get these episodes out the door. Thank you. Greatly appreciate it. What's going on? Who's in the studio today?
So today is April 21st, and we have Curren L. And he is here to talk. He's from Jacksonville, Florida, actually, and he's here to talk to us about today's daily reflection, and that is cultivating faith.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show, Curren. It's great to have you on the podcast. We get started in the same way every day. We ask the guest to read the daily reflection. Would you help us get started?
Yes, definitely. April 21st, Cultivating Faith. I don't think we can do anything very well in this world unless we practice it. And I don't believe we do AA too well unless we practice it. We should practice acquiring the spirit of service. We should attempt to acquire some faith, which isn't easily done, especially for the person who has always been materialistic, following the standards of society today. But I think faith can be acquired. It can be acquired slowly. It has to be cultivated. That was not easy for me, and I assume that it is difficult for everyone else. Dr. Bob and the Good Oldtimers, paragraph 307 through 08. Fear is often the force that prevents me from acquiring and cultivating the power of faith. Fear blocks my appreciation of beauty, tolerance, forgiveness, service, and serenity.
That's great. Thank you for reading that, Curren. And before we begin, can you tell us your sobriety date?
My sobriety date is June 9th, 2020.
So you're a pandemic kid.
Pandemic baby.
A pandemic baby. So let's talk about this. As you read this, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
So I think one thing I can, without a doubt, trace back to as young as being like 7 or 8 years old was just always needing and wanting something. Both my parents were in AA or still sober to this day, and very lucky enough that I never got to witness them take another drink again. But throughout life, there was times when there was always something missing, needed something. And, my dad had separated, and when I was really young, and I always wanted to be around him. We had a very tight relationship. I would always just felt like I needed something, whether it was like, from toys to, clothing, once, I'm in my teens, but always needing something to be satisfied. To then later on in life, in my 20s, once I started drinking, always needed some type of treat, some type of reward, whether it was like I had to have that beer after a day of work. Like I had to have it. I deserved to have that. I remember I always wondered if that would go away, and maybe there's not an answer to that. I feel like I had to stop stressing over that. So when I see that word materialistic and acquiring all that, that definitely kind of hits out of the ballpark when I first definitely got into AA, because I remember hearing stuff about that before.
So always searching for something outside yourself, I think, is what I'm hearing. I relate to that. It's like never satisfied, And I'm wondering, it also mentions faith. As you've come into recovery, has faith played a role in your program?
When I hear the word faith, I think of hope. And when I don't really, and I feel like maybe in other instances, faith is related to religion. So I feel like to answer that question, there's a yes and no. No, as in regard to religion. Yes, as in there was this personal belief that I needed this, I had to do this, but I wanted this. And then it sounds contradicting at the same time. Well, it's like, well, what is that? What was that? Is there something stronger out there that regarding to religion that has brought me in and luckily has still kept me sober? So that could be faith. And but what is faith? I mean, it could be what I mentioned earlier, hopefulness. You know, I don't know if that ties into like having like a higher power or something. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I like that. And I don't know that any of us are really ever sure until, you know, maybe lots of more time of working on it. And like it says here, it's just about practicing and practicing and cultivating. And eventually it starts to unfold for us, whatever that is. So talk to us a little bit about, you know, what brought you in. You're a young person. So obviously you're coming in fairly young in life. What is it that brought you in?
My drinking had gotten like I didn't start drinking till I was 20, 21, like a late 21. It would just be a drink here and there. But when I started but I remember when I had first started drinking, it was like as like for a mental punishment because I just felt like I was just failing at what I was doing. And then later on, you know, life goes on, things are good, yada yada, and then I just, you know, drink here and there, and it just started to gradually grow. And if I look at this timeline of when I started to when I stopped, it just got like it just like a growth. It just kept growing and growing and growing, and the hangovers were worse and worse. But it got to a point where before I didn't really put two and two together, but I had severe anxieties. I've always, you know, had depression, but it was just the depression, the anxiety was just getting worse and worse. And when I was living in Philadelphia, I was definitely living kind of like I say, like a rock star life of just treated really well. I was in fine dining. I was a bartender at a very well-known restaurant. So hanging out with, you know, either like, you know, well-known people in Philadelphia, rich people, celebrities, to punk rockers, to whatever, all kinds of genres of groups. But being like having like a social group or social life in each and every part, I was drinking a lot. But then it got to a point where I was having a lot of suicidal thoughts, a lot of my anxiety was through the roof, and just I couldn't. It was to a point where I couldn't even close my eyes and not be at ease. And then I moved to once the pandemic happened or COVID happened and everything. I helped some family move over to my hometown from Dallas to here, and then I decided to stay and just move here. I would help take care of my grandfather in the mornings and bring him breakfast, and I had like a responsibility. And then since I'm here, I drive everywhere now. And, you know, before I just walk everywhere living in downtown. You know, I had an episode where I got really drunk, and my drinking was just getting more and more excessive because it's how I would drink in Philadelphia. But my tolerance was just getting so much higher. And then I ended up leaving my parents' house and moving with some friends, and great friends, neighborhood friends. And I remember saying, I needed to take a break because I wanted to be at service and be there for my grandpa, or if my dad or my stepmom needed me, I wanted to be there for them. And next thing you know, I'm drinking again. And it was, I started drinking, you know, I would make myself cocktails being a former bartender. I was drinking at like 12 at lunch. Oh, I was unemployed by the time I was on unemployment, and just kind of hanging out and just drinking. So it was like 12 lunchtime, noon, and I was drinking all until 4 a.m. And I could have kept going. And I was probably drunk, but I felt fine. I wasn't blacked out drunk. And I just remember thinking, I can't keep doing this. And it was that same thought and statement I had when I was in Philadelphia. I was drinking a lot after work. You know, that's what you would do. And I had episodes where back in Philly, I'd end up in the hospital or something. And I one time I didn't remember how I ended up in the hospital, but I was in the hospital. And then the second time I remember checking myself in the hospital because I had just drank so much. I thought I was going to die. But I remember even in Philly a few years ago thinking, I can't last another year here because of my lifestyle. And then it was funny because I remember talking to my stepmom about like when I moved them over here from Dallas to here. I was like, oh, let me just give me one more year. And then my stepmom's like, what's one more year going to do? And it was so contradicting because I knew I would have lost another year there without a doubt. And I think I was, I don't think I've ever expressed this, but I'm like terrified to go to like rehab or, like anything beyond, I don't know. It's just, I don't know why, I just am. But I knew I had to stop. And it was hard for me to stop. The best example was like, I said, I got to stop. And I did. I quit for like 3 months. And then boom, I'm living with my friends and I'm drinking even harder now. So that's what brought me in.
Yeah, I can relate to that almost complete inability to stay stopped. Like I could stop for a period of time, but I could never really seem to stay stopped for long. And toward the end, it was, that's just a nightmare to be in. I remember feeling like I'm on this treadmill and I just can't get off. So tell us a little bit about how you found the program and how you started working on recovery.
I grew up going to AA meetings because of both my parents. My parents met in going to AA. So they would always say like, oh yeah, we'd bring you in when you were like just, in the little baby carriage, so to speak. And friends of my parents that I know to this day would say that. And growing up, I remember that. I remember being in the rooms young because they couldn't afford a babysitter. So, you bring them in. And we were good. We're pretty good kids. I remember to my knowledge, I felt like we're always quiet and respectable unless we're a baby crying or whatever, take them out of the rooms. So I always knew about AA and I always felt comfortable about AA. Like I never felt scared going into AA, which was honestly a blessing. But when from my anniversary date, June 9th, 2020, I literally Googled AA meetings, availability on Zoom or something like that. I just Googled it because I had to do, so I had to start but I wanted it, and whereas before when I was living in Philadelphia, I remember I had an episode where it's a late night before Father's Day and just, a night in Philadelphia. The next day it's Father's Day and I'm Father's Day brunch, faces an inch away from my plate. Like I'm about to drop into my breakfast on Father's Day with my sober dad. Then that day, I remember I was deathly hungover. I remember like going to AA meeting that day because, I was like, oh, I got to do this now. I didn't go back after that. Like I didn't want it. So with this time, it's like, I did, I found this home group that was based in Atlanta, Georgia that I found from just Googling AA meeting availability on Zoom. And then that became my home group called Group 24 and great group. That's pretty much how that's how my AA sober journey started, basically.
I love the story. And, the fact that you have two sober parents and you were exposed to AA as you grew up. There are a lot of kids, we're older and we have kids your age and we might be saving them a seat. It's kind of cool to know that the example of sobriety does plant some sort of a seed and you knew where to go. You knew there was a solution somewhere. I find that hopeful. Did you actually talk to your parents about your need for recovery or your problems with alcohol before you came in?
So, when I mentioned earlier, like kind of like my backstory, I had a really bad afternoon of drinking, and they were gonna check me into like a recovery center or something because I was just out of control. And after discussing, they're like, all right, we'll just let you're an adult, you're gonna do what you got to do, but you can't. They set like a boundary, like you can't drink in our household anymore. And so then next thing you know, I end up, luckily my great friends needed to live with them, great, and I got a job. And next thing you know, I just started, but things are good, and then I started drinking again, but it got even heavier. But I didn't tell him that. And not that I didn't feel afraid to, but it was just, I felt like I was an adult. And yes, I'm an adult, but I guess I kind of kept it behind closed doors, so to speak. And
Yeah. Did you talk with your parents about it?
Did you use them as a resource? Were they, or did you kind of do it on your own because you already knew where the solution was?
Gotcha. No, I didn't, because I was afraid I was going to go back out again. It wasn't until a good few months I started telling about a good month after I had told my dad. I was like, yeah, I started going to meetings, and it was very, oh, that's great, because yeah, it's great. Of course my parents are going to be supportive of it. I remember my dad telling me, and I could tell in his eyes how, he was very serious and very, I don't want to say concerned, or worried, but just in the moment that if I had any questions or need help with anything, just, I can always talk to him. And I'm like, of course, but I've definitely kind of taken lead on that, which I definitely pat myself on the back. And I'm not saying I definitely can't do this alone. I definitely took a lead on going in, and surprisingly, even though I was in AA, I didn't get a sponsor until 5 months in. I didn't have a sponsor until 5 months in, and then I started asking around my dad's friends who were here and there, that if theirs in Philly or wherever, that if they could sponsor me, and they're like, nah, you're too close to your father. You need someone you don't really have this full relationship with on both sides. So I had to, take lead on kind of just, my dad helped me find someone, and then boom, just one step here, one step there, so to speak. But I will say a lot of it has been on my end, with the help here and there with my dad.
So speaking as a parent of someone right around your age, I'm curious about if anything your parents did or said or behavior they modeled, do you think that helped in your willingness to seek recovery?
I remember when I was living in Philadelphia, I had this thought, oh, it'd be cool if I could be sober with my dad. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen. Quitting wasn't really an option then, or pretty much impossible, it seemed like. But to answer your question, I think, yeah, there was. Yeah, I mean, you hear people how long how many years they've been or whatever, how many years they've been in recovery and stuff. And you're like, oh, damn, they're a veteran. I think at the end of the day, it's still on you. It's not about that. It's on your hands. At the end of the day, I'm not trying to sound like some expert, but what I will say is, because of my experience, it's got to be on your own terms. And it sounds so cheesy, but you really got to want it. I mean, yes, your experiences, you can be at your lowest low, but still keep going. You can still just be like, all right, fuck it, I'll just keep going. I'll just keep drinking. But there's got to be that spark of just giving in, getting down on your knees and just saying, I give up. I can't keep going. Yeah, you can have a role model. I don't know what good that is if it's, you still got to do your part. I don't really think it matters if you have a role model or not, because you're in a room full of role models, but at the end of the day, it's still on your part. And my answer may totally change from here on out, but that's just what I think. I mean, I don't know.
I think that's a great answer. I agree from my perspective. I wasn't going to do it until I was ready to do it. And I have a friend in the program that says every bottom has a trapdoor. No matter how low you go, there's always lower you can go if you keep it up. So until we get to that point where we're done, we're just not done. So let's project forward just a little bit, because it's now. What kind of relief have you found in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous? How's your life different today? And it's not, that far down the road, but a significant amount of time, considering you weren't able to stop drinking on your own for a long time.
It's really cool, and very, very happy and thankful, because right now I can say I just crossed 9 months, and then was it April, March 9th will be my 10 months. If, I'm getting closer to a year. It's definitely out of my system, and the anxiety aspect has been completely gone. And yes, there's going to be a stressful day at work, or incidents in life, whatever. And yes, you're going to have some hints of anxiety, but this type of anxiety where I'm not sleeping for a few days basically, and barely eating for a few days because of the anxiety level. I'm very, very happy that that's out the window. I don't feel sluggish. Physically, I don't feel sluggish. I've definitely gained some weight, but that's cool. So I was definitely skin and bones back then. And I think I was just very surprised and relieved for sure that definitely just my anxiety. I mean, yes, there may be, because I've always had this depression, whatever, for a long time, but I try not to use that as an excuse to anything. But I'm definitely not like severe depressed or suicidal by any means, or suicidal thoughts. So I'm very grateful for that. So that definitely went away, and which is amazing. Because I didn't really think, I don't know, for some odd reason, I didn't really think it was the alcohol that was making it worse. You know what I mean? So to answer your question on that.
Yeah. So, there's probably a number of folks in the same situation as you were coming up on 10 months ago, your age, young, concerned about having to give this thing up, give up their party lifestyle. What advice would you have to somebody in your shoes?
Advice to someone who's like trying to quit, or
they're not sure if AA is for them, and they just know that they have the same type of problem you had, where you just couldn't leave it alone, felt like you were always anxious, depressed, had some of the same symptoms that you did. They're not sure what to do about it. What advice might you have for them?
Well, one, I didn't really think it was the alcohol, and it sounds so crazy. I really didn't think it was my excessive drinking that was making it worse gradually, and so I think my question is, maybe it's alcohol, or maybe it's, I was doing a lot of therapy too, and I wasn't sure if it was a therapy because I was doing a certain type of therapy for trauma called EMDR, so I wasn't sure if it was that. There's all these resources that like help that I was like doing. And I'm like, well, what's not working? No, I mean, it's like nothing was working, it seemed like. But I would say, is it the first question, is it the alcohol? Is it alcohol? Is it drinking? Thankfully, I never got into drugs, and I never did drugs. So that's a thing too. It's like, well, what are you doing? You'll know when there's something that has to change. And you can at least try it. Just try it. I mean, you'll know, and if something's getting that bad, you'll know. You'll know when it's time.
Would you, as we begin to wrap up here today, Curren, would you suggest to folks who might be thinking about coming in that this is not a difficult process, or, talk to us a little bit about the advice you would give to them regarding AA as a tool for recovery?
It's hard when you think about it. It's hard if you try to think of this time like, oh man, that guy's got, so-and-so years, or I got to do this, I got to read this, got to read that. Because for me, what's hard about this is just for me, like the readings. I don't want to read, but I'll do it. It's so there's certain aspects or like waking up for an early meeting. I don't want to wake up for an early meeting, but now that I start doing it, and it's like, we do Friday mornings at 7 a.m. I can't wait to go to that meeting, and I'm always there. And next thing you know, it's like, okay, you keep doing it. You get used to it. And it's like, I guess, like if you were to wake up for work, yeah, it can be challenging, but then you get used to it. It's a grind. It's not hard, but it's a grind. Yeah, there is some, I wouldn't say it's easy. Nothing's easy. Looking back, it's not that hard, but it's just, you get there one little speck at a time.
Yeah, I love that. One day at a time, 1 minute at a time, if necessary.
Yeah.
Well, Curren, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a real honor.
Thanks so much for listening. If you want to find us online, you can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Daily Reflection Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Daily Reflector. You can read stories of recovery from our community at blog.dailyreflectionpodcast.com. Please don't forget to give us a rating on your podcast app. We greatly appreciate it. Have a great day. The Daily Reflection Podcast is produced by Lee McGinnis and Michael Lynn. Editing services provided by Jeff Bain.